Welcome to the Radiant Visalia podcast. Join us at one of our two services, 9 a.m. and 10:45 a.m. Download the Church Center app or visit our website, radiantvisalia.com, to stay connected with us. All right, enjoy.
There is a heavenly city that I'm compelled to find.
Do you ever think about dying? You ever think about dying? You ever try to project and in an attempt to understand what it might feel like to know that the end is near? I think because dying is one of my greatest fears, or might be my greatest fear, specifically dying prematurely. I think I often think about what I would do or what it would look like to die. Of course, my hope is that I would die well. Am I alone here, or do you think about dying? Or is this just a bummer of a way to start a sermon? Like, I do think about dying, but not usually at church. Thanks, Trav. I serve you well to number your days and know that they are limited here. Of course, my hope is that I would die well, that I would go gracefully, that I would die well. And I picture myself being bedridden. Is that how you picture yourself going out? I picture myself bedridden. And my body's breaking down, but mentally I'm sharper than ever. Because the closer I get to death, the wiser I become, the more brilliant I become. I have, upon my deathbed, this incredible ability to boil things down, or to discern between what's important and what's not so important. Because of my perspective, I'm able to see what's essential, and I'm not wasting my words. Is this what it looks like for you when you're picturing yourself dying? I no longer have time for what's unessential. All the things that used to take up my time, I no longer have time for those things. And what I do and what I see myself doing, I see golly, this was kind of supposed to be a jokey intro, and now I feel like I'm going to cry. But I picture myself I picture myself assuring my daughters of my love for them, and I picture myself assuring them of God's ability to care for them in my absence. I picture myself declaring over them the truth of who they are and the truth of how I feel about them, so that there would be no shadow of a doubt. They would know where Dad's at. I picture myself spending a fair amount of time telling them to marry men who love Jesus and not boys who play video games. I'd spend a good amount of time doing that. And this is always a part of it, too. I picture myself praising my wife for just constant love and support. And then I always give her permission to marry someone else. Has anyone done that? You're like, this is super detailed, Travis. You're sick. Totally detailed, totally sick. My time, though, is really intentional, and my words are really powerful. And my funeral, as a result, is really well attended. And the people that didn't know me real well wished that they did, but it's too late. It's like, oh man, And the people who did know me well finally realized like what they had. Do you know? You guys are acting like you don't do this. This is church, you be honest. You got to own this stuff before the Lord. But this is how I picture myself going out. This last Friday, I went to urgent care in Morro Bay, which nothing in Morro Bay is very urgent. It's like, yeah, we'll get to you because the waves are down. And I went because I lost my peripheral vision, and I started to feel some really intense pressure in my head and specifically on my temple. And so I went in, and they were pretty confident it was a migraine, but they wanted to do some tests because they wanted to rule out or make sure that it wasn't an aneurysm. And so, of course, when she used that word, I was like, oh my goodness. Then my wife was like, what'd they say? They're like, they said it was a migraine. They wanted to run some tests, and I started to think to myself, it doesn't work to die like this. This wasn't part of my plan. This gives me no runway to fly into eternity. I don't want to die suddenly, and I don't want to die unexpectedly. That's not what I planned. It's not the way it looks, because I don't have time to download what I need to download. And this was my conversation on Friday, the things I was thinking about. What I'm about to read to you out of John 15 are red letters. But these are deathbed red letters. These are dead red letters. And I know that everything that Jesus said was important, and I know that every word of Scripture is important. But Jesus is giving some real, intentional instruction to his disciples. Picture him. He knows the end is near. He's thinking through, what are the essential things? What are the important things? What are the things that my closest friends need to know so that there's not a shadow of a doubt? I know that I'm leaving. I know that my time here is coming to an end. So please, as I read these words, don't just think to yourself, I've heard this before. Would you picture Jesus giving away what he believes to be essential? The context of this is he's turning the thing over to his disciples. And there could have been a lot of points. There could have been a really elaborate agenda to this meeting. Imagine what it would look like. I mean, when I hand over the reins to a babysitter, there's elaborate instructions, right? It's this, that, not this one. Penny won't take that pacifier. She only takes this pacifier. You know, there's a lot of details. Some of you, can you imagine handing over your organization? What you would need to say, how you would prepare the person coming after you. What would you say to them? There would be a lot that you would need to download, yet I believe Jesus is pressing on just one thing, and it's a drum that he keeps beating over and over again. See if you can pick it up as we read John 15. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You're my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I've called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last. And so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command: love each other. Did you pick up on the main point? A lot of things were said, but essentially one thing was being said: remain in me. Stay close. Stay close. Stay connected. Stay connected. Stay close. Remain. Abide. Abide in me. Remain in me. Stay close to me. Have a vital, life-giving relationship with me. I'm leaving. Have a vital, life-giving relationship with me. Stay connected. What to do, how to do it, where to do it, all of those things will come if you just stay close. Draw on me, abide, remain in my love. We all live as Christians, myself included, maybe more so for me than you, but I live with a sense of guilt that I should be more connected to Jesus than I am, and I should be more committed to Jesus than I am. Anybody share that sense of guilt? I should be doing more than I am. I should like him more than I do. I should read more. I should have quiet times, whatever it is for you. We all live with this sense of, I should be more connected than I am. I should know more than I do. And I should do more than I do. I should do something with what I know. We all share a sense of just discontent. There's more. There's more to be done. There's more to know. There's more connection. There's more intimacy to be had. You with me? Still with me? We know that we're supposed to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, which can be tough because he's invisible. And we know we're supposed to do the things that he did, that there are works that he created for us in advance to do, as Eric reminded us. We know we should know him more and we should be doing more. That as Christians, we're supposed to be active. We're supposed to have an intimacy with God. We're supposed to know him, but we're also supposed to be active for him, that our faith without works is dead, and so we should get busy. There should be some activity. We know that being a Christian means being with Jesus, and we know it means doing things for Jesus. And I don't find too many people that are content with the amount of time they're being with Jesus or the things that they're doing for Jesus. And I don't know about you guys, but I've experienced a tension in my life between my intimacy with God, my being with him, and then my doing things for him. And I found that a working relationship is not necessarily an intimate relationship. Anybody experience the tension between being with him or doing things for him? Anybody find themselves in this tension or swinging to one side or the other, like super involved with zero intimacy, or having some intimacy, but in order to have that, you need to not be involved in all of these things? Anybody experience the tension between intimacy and involvement, of being with him and doing things for him? We know that it's essential. We know that these things are inseparable, really. That's what Jesus is saying. This is essential that you stay connected to me. It's essential. And it's appointed that you would bear fruit. You would have an impact. You would be involved. You would be known as my followers because of the way you're living your lives. Stay connected, but commit yourself to these things. And I find myself going back and forth, like I'm so connected. I'm so committed, I should say, that I don't feel connected. I'm doing God's work without God. It's exhausting trying to do God's work without God. The tension is kind of forever embodied in Mary and Martha, right? You've heard the Mary-Martha story where Mary's sitting at the feet of Jesus. Martha's prepping in the kitchen. Martha gets ticked. You know that Mary's sitting there and starts intentionally making a lot of noise just to get Mary's attention, like, hey, I'm working in here while you sit there and listen to Jesus. I'm up to something here, and maybe you should join me. And Jesus says some things to the two of them and says this thing that Mary's done will never be taken from her. But the tension that exists is embodied in this Mary and Martha story. Listen, my charge to you this morning, because I want to cast some vision for this next year. But if we're going to walk forward as a church, it has to be on the legs of intimacy and involvement. We won't hop around on the one leg of intimacy in our Christian ghetto, and we also won't hop around on the one leg of involvement without experiencing an intimacy with him. Our prayers can't just become a rubber stamp on our plans. We have to have both intimacy and involvement in order to walk this thing forward. And I believe that this is what Jesus is calling for in this passage. Connection, intimacy, and involvement, that you would bear fruit. If we have involvement without an intimacy, if we just get busy, get active, I know we could do this and we could do that. If we have involvement without intimacy, we're ineffective. We're vulnerable. We're strifed out. And the picture that I have of this year is that we would march forward with an intimacy, experiencing a closeness of being with Jesus, and then also doing the things that he's asked us to do. But doing the stuff is just a means of being with him. How many of you, I feel like this is a great thing for a youth group. I used to be a youth pastor, and then I planted a church, which is essentially an overgrown youth group. And now you're here, and you're bald, and you've got gray hair, and we love you. And we thank you for coming. But I used to be a youth pastor, and I think like a youth pastor. And this rhythm of retreating and engaging, this rhythm of intimacy and involvement is a little bit like breathing in and breathing out. They're essential and inseparable. If all you did was breathe in, you would pass out. And that's where I'd bring some youth onto the stage, and I would make him just breathe in until he passed out. And then I would respond to the email by apologizing. I didn't mean to pass your son out. If all you did was breathe out, if that's all you did, you'd pass out. These are essential. They're inseparable. Jesus says, come, and Jesus says, go. How many of you would say, I'm more prone to hear him say go? When I read the Gospels, it's what I see. I see the way Jesus engaged, not the way Jesus retreated. How many of you would say, it's easier for me to hear Jesus say come than it is for me to hear him say go? How many of you would say, I'm more into the going and have a difficult time coming? How many of you would say, I have a tough time, I've confused myself, coming and going? You know what I mean. Like if you're going to fall off the horse, what side of the horse are you going to fall off on? Coming or going? I know they're essential. It's a both-and conversation. But if you find yourself falling off the horse, what side do you fall off on? I've loved looking at Instagram and seeing every kid in this entire church's first day of school. That was maybe sarcastic. I'm just trying to get in the head of the singles here who have had it. Just trying to connect with you. If you don't have kids, just contextualizing. I loved seeing it, and it's so interesting to see all the kids' different responses, right? Like you've got kids that are runners, and you've got kids that are clingers, and it looks different to drop them off. There's one that you can't find because they've run ahead, Remy. There's one that I couldn't even take to the door because she'd run across the parking lot. And to that child, you're always saying, come here, come back here. Remy, come back here. Come back here. And then you've got a clinger who you can't find, not because they've run ahead, but because they're on your leg and you can't see them, kind of like an Australian shepherd. You're just, oh. And the word is, go. It's going to be fine in that class right back there. I know they're all crying, but you'll be fine. I know that Aikland kid's been here for 4 services, but you'll be fine. Go. We have kids, and some of them we need to say go, and some of them we need to say, come, rein it in. You're going to get run over in the parking lot. Come back. What is he saying to you about this year? How does he get your attention? Is it easy for you to see, just to hear Jesus say go? Or I know, as I said, as I read the Gospels, I see this rhythm in Jesus' life of retreating and then advancing, of coming and then going. And there's a healthy rhythm in it. And I believe this is the way that we abide, remain, that we stay connected to him. Before he chooses the 12 disciples, he spends the entire night alone. There's no sermons on that. There's only sermons on him choosing the 12 disciples. When he received the news of the death of John the Baptist, he withdrew from there in a boat to a lonely place. After he miraculously fed 5,000s, that's a lot. He made his disciples leave. And then he dismissed the crowd and he went up onto a hillside by himself. Following a long night of work, he woke up early and went off to a lonely place. Following the healing of a leper, Jesus withdrew to the wilderness and he prayed. With 3 disciples, he sought out the silence of a lonely mountain as the stage for a transfiguration. As he prepared for the cross, he sought the solitude of the garden. He begins his ministry by spending 40 days in the desert, essentially embracing his limits. See, when I read the Gospels, I love Jesus Christ superstar, engaging with everyone, healing, forgiving, teaching, blowing minds. It's what I see, it's what I love. But if you really want to be the WWJD guy, then this involves retreating and embracing your limitations as well. If you're going to sustain, abide, stay connected with him. This passage that we just read is just one royal invitation to connect with him, to enjoy a vital, life-giving relationship with Jesus. One huge invite. My desire is that this year we would respond to the invitation that the Lord's put before us. Stay connected, remain, abide. I don't know if you're like me, but being committed is actually a little bit easier. There's something pretty mysterious about being connected. Staying committed to your marriage is much easier than staying connected in your marriage. And your marriage ends not because you're not committed, but because you're not connected first and foremost. Then you give up on being committed. Being connected there's something really mysterious about it, right? It's not easy. It's much easier just to sign up to lead a party and pack. Just be a part of the program. But experiencing vital connection and relationship in that pack is something difficult. Am I right? What does it look like to abide? What does it look like to remain? If this is the invitation that Jesus is saying, stay connected to me, your invisible friend. What does it look like to abide in him? What does it look like to remain in him? You're going to need a few things if you're going to abide in him. If you're going to stay connected to him, you're going to need the knife, you're going to need joy, you're going to need friendship, and you're going to need the love of God. I see all 4 of these things in this passage. You're going to need the knife if you're going to remain in him, if you're going to abide in him, if you're going to be in a vital, life-giving relationship with him, you're going to need the knife. You're going to need the joy, you're going to need the friendship, and you're going to need the love of God. So we'll start with the most interesting one. We'll start with the knife. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes. While every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it'll be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. Tom Shaw spoke at Celebration. He also spoke here on a Sunday morning. The word that he gave at Celebration will bring direction to this next year of our family life. We felt like it brought some correction and some direction. The word is all about pruning and abiding. It's all about God cutting, taking the knife to things, not just the bad things, but the good things. You have to get on and listen to the sermon. If you weren't at Celebration, you need to get updated on what we believe the Lord is going to do this next year at Radiant. We believe that the knife will come to not just bad things, but will come to good things, fruitful things. Things that we've had a hard time letting go of because they've been so fruitful. The knife will come to those things because we desire to bear even more fruit. Actually, we don't. God desires that we bear even more fruit, and that we don't really have a say in it. This is the case in every relationship. Even if you're here and you're like, I don't have or really want a relationship with God, I believe that all 4 of these things would apply to any relationship you have. The knife must come. Things must be pruned. The tendency is that over time, things sprout up, things come up, things crowd out. And there is in every relationship this moment where you're like, there's too much going on. And the primary thing is no longer the primary thing. The main thing is no longer the main thing. And we need to get rid of these things that are not essential, and we need to focus on us, is the conversation. It happens in every relationship. And here we have it. The knife coming even in our relationship with him. And here's the good news. If you remain in Jesus, you'll be cut back into fruitfulness. If you don't remain in him, you'll be cut off. If you remain in him, like you don't weasel out of it, you don't avoid it, but you embrace it, the promise is you'll be cut back into fruitfulness, not cut off. The good news that we celebrate is that Jesus was cut off so that you only have to be cut back. Jesus was cut off. He was separated. He was cut off from the land of the living so that you could experience a vital relationship with God and only be cut back into more fruitfulness. The promise is that you will be cut back into more fruitfulness if you remain in him. We have to get our heads around this truth that he prunes every branch. And some of you are just freaking out, as I would be, and as most of us are when a tree is pruned. Sometimes I'm like, I paid you to do that? You attacked the tree. You hacked it. It looks terrible now. It always feels extreme. It always feels like, I'm not talking about bad things. It's one thing to have a dead branch laying on the ground. It's another thing to have a green branch laying on the ground. And some of you feel like, man, it's just, there are good things laying on the ground. Not bad things, there's good things laying on the ground. They've been cut off. And the promise that you need to hear this morning from Jesus is that because Jesus was cut off, you can be cut back into fruitfulness if you remain in him. The only way to embrace the pruning of God is to understand that your identity is not in the fruit. The only way to embrace it is to know that you are not what you do. And what gets exposed every time in me is that I've found my identity in what I do. And what I really want is to be successful, and God's just a means to being successful. God's just a means to bearing fruit. And the idolatry of my heart gets exposed in a season of pruning. The only other way to get through this pruning is to have some perspective, like have the end in mind. To understand that it's not just about this season, but it's about bearing fruit in every season. There has to be some perspective. And then there just needs to be massive amounts of trust. Like I was out in the Scott and Matt and Dan Chase's fields looking at some trees and thinking, I don't know about that. It looks kind of odd. But I can trust knowing that they know what they're doing. Knowing that they know what's best, knowing that they know what the tree needs. And there's something in us in a season of pruning where we're asked to trust in a whole new way. Because it's not just the bad things that are going, it's the good things that are going. You have to have this take place. Every branch he will prune. You will not abide in him. You'll be busy for him if you don't allow him to prune even the good things in your life. You need joy. If you're going to abide in him, you're going to have to enjoy him. Sounds simple enough, right? If you're going to grow in anything, you need to have joy. Show me someone who's growing, and I'll show you someone who's joying. Show me a relationship that's growing, I'll show you two people who are joying. Show me something that's shriveling, and I will show you someone who no longer enjoys what they're doing or who they're with. There must be for us a sense of joy. And I'm contending this year for not only the knife to come to my life and to Radiant Church, but the joy to come to my life and to Radiant Church. Jesus is really committed to your joy. Cares about your joy. I've told you this, he says in verse 11, so that my joy may be in you and that your joy would be made complete. On his deathbed, he's thinking about imparting joy and that your joy would be made complete. Do you do what you do out of a sense of duty? All the activity. Do you do what you do out of a sense of duty, or is there delight in it? A sense of obligation or duty can start a car, but it's not fuel for an engine. You won't get very far down the road. You'll have 2 pack meetings, and then it'll be over because you did it out of obligation. And again, that sense of guilt is a great way to start. You cannot sustain, you cannot remain, you cannot abide without a sense of joy. A joy-filled hope, a vision that calls us through the pain of transformation. That's how people endure all kinds of things or abide I think about like the player on a team who's running lines. Doesn't even get to start or play on the team, but is subjecting themselves to this grueling practice. And it's because they have a joy-filled hope. They've got a picture in their mind, a vision that would call them through the pain of transformation. The vision is this: hitting the game-winning shot, or being on the foul line when it counts and making those free throws. There's a vision that calls them through the pain of transformation. And there's pain in this life and in this process, and you have to have a vision that brings joy. Jesus, for the joy set before him, endured the cross. As he was tortured, there was a joy set before him, a vision that called him through the pain. We must have this. I want this. What brings you joy? What do you delight in? You will abide in and remain in and stay close to those things that bring joy, and you will separate yourself from those things that you don't. It's funny, I did these workout videos with Tiffany. Any guy here want to cop to that? And it's always like, this is dumb, she's dumb, I don't want to do this, this, I'm not even going to get any exercise out of this. This is stupid. I can do this for 60 seconds. And then like 30 seconds in, I'm like, I can't do what that lady's doing while talking to me, And Tiff, after, maybe like a week or two of these videos, was kind of like, do you like it? And it's like, no, I hate it. I hate this every time. I hate working out. I don't know which thing I hate more, eating right or working out. It's just like a toss-up for me. There's a real tension there. And it's funny, like we do the goal thing of 3 weeks. And Tiffany's like, I actually kind of like this. And I'm like, I kind of actually don't. And I don't want to do this. And what's interesting is like even after we did our 3 weeks, Tiff is still watching the videos, And I just quit. There's no sense of joy in it. And there will be tough times, and we will have to endure. But there should be a sense of joy. If Jesus had it, even when he was being tortured, then I can believe that we can have it. If he's praying, not for our joy, he's like, I'm going to give you my joy. I'm going to give you my joy. You stay in a vital, connected relationship with me, and I'm going to impart to you my joy. It's not even up to you. You stay close to me, remain, stay close. I'll give you my joy, and my joy will help you abide. My joy will sustain you. Friendship. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You're my friends. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I've called you friends. For everything I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. If you're going to abide in a relationship with me, it'll have to be a friendship with God. I went to lunch with Mike Young, because Mike Young's back, and we're excited to have him back. And I think everyone just needs a lunch with Mike to just kind of unload what's happened this last year. And then you wouldn't believe what happened, and Mike's like, I wasn't here. Tell me all about it. So I'm talking with Mike, and Mike asked me this question. Hey, what does your devotional life look like? I know what your upfront and your day-to-day, your Monday through Friday, like I know what that looks like, but what does your devotional life look like? And I think that he was saying, I know you're busy. How do you retreat and where do you go? Which immediately I felt that guilt, right? The same guilt that you'd feel if I asked you, how's your devotional life? Well, not what it could be, not what it should be. I know I could or should be doing more. And I've never been terribly proud of my devotional life. I feel like my outer life is so much bigger than my inner life. And so Mike asked me the question, and I was like, yeah, I know I should be spending more time with Jesus so that I can sustain what I'm doing. I know that in order to carry this weight and to carry these people and to lead, I should probably be spending some time with Jesus. You're picking up on the subtle, spending time with Jesus is actually a means to an end. So Mike picked up on that too, and Mike says to me, Trav, like God doesn't want to use you. He wants a relationship with you. And I know it sounds like really simple, but I started to cry. Because I really was thinking, well, I have to spend time with Jesus so that Jesus can use me. I have to spend time with Jesus so he can do things through me, so that I don't get in the way of him doing things through me. And Mike was like, man, if all this went away, Jesus would just want to spend time with you. Like to have a relationship, a friendship with you. I felt so confronted. My idea of who he is and what he wants felt interrupted as Mike spoke, and it was eye-opening to me. 2 weeks ago, Penny was found floating in the pool in blue. And the babysitters pulled her out, and she's fine. But as you can imagine, the experience was really traumatic for everyone involved. And to drive home his point, Mike says to me, I just feel like God would want to say to you, Trav, come here, man. I'm sorry your daughter almost drowned. And it's just like, for me, it was like, that's the last thing God's going to say to me. He's going to say, come over here. I told you not to do that. You come here. He's way more interested, in my mind, the God of my mind is way more interested in correcting me than connecting with me. So he says, come here. He says things like, I love you, but that's just an intro to the but comment, you know? Like I sometimes feel, and I would never say this out loud until I'm preaching, but I sometimes feel like God's the ultimate but guy. Like, I love you, but I told you not to do that. I told you not to say that. I told you not to feel that. I told you. And how many know it feels like the truest thing about the comment is what follows the but, not what comes before the but. I love you, but you drive me crazy. I never hear the I love you part. It's the but you drive me crazy that rings true. And I was so, again, interrupted by this idea that God would want relationship with me, primarily relationship with me. That my being with him wouldn't serve my desires to do things for him, but that my desires to do things for him would just be a means to being with him. And that he genuinely wanted a friendship with me. What would he say to you? What would he say to you right now? The God in your mind, the God that you've made up. Get over here. Listen, I love you, but you're acting like an idiot right now. What does it sound like? What are you hearing? I've no longer called you servants. I call you friends. And if you're going to abide in him, you'll need the knife, you'll need the joy, but you'll need a friendship with God. One of the things that I felt like God is constantly doing, hang with me here. I haven't preached in 8 weeks. Just 8 more points. One of the things that I was, on one of those mornings when I was with the Chase brothers, I started to kind of fall in love with this idea of farming. You know, like walking through a field with a coffee in the morning. I just felt like I could have a devotional life if I was just able to walk these fields in the morning. And I started in on my prayer list, and it was like, this is bad, and this sucks, and this is going wrong, and God, do something about this. I just felt interrupted, and I felt like the Lord said to me, what are you excited about? Can we talk about that? Whoa, what am I excited about? I mean, I feel like you just engaged me like a friend. I would encourage you, in order to build your friendship with God, I would start writing. I would write what you're mad about. I'm not mad about anything. Just start writing. Watch. What you're sad about. No, I'm generally pretty good. Just clapping my hands in worship. Just start writing. Watch what comes out. What are you afraid of? And what are you excited about? Just start writing and pray those things. Talk to him like you would talk to a friend. This is what's got me angry. This is what's got me excited. This is what's got me scared. It'll build your relationship with him, and you have to have that to abide. You have to have that to stay connected. And the last thing you're going to need is the love. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I've told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. It's really embarrassing that we need God in order to love God, or that we need God even to love our spouse, that we need God to love our kids, that we need God to even love our friends. Anybody experience that? Where it's like, I don't even have enough for the people I like. I need you to love you. You need the love of God. That it would be the truest thing about you, that you're loved by God. See, because the but comment comes into play here as well, right? I know, Trav. I know God loves me, but I'll always be ashamed of this. Oh, I know, God, Jesus loved me, this I know, I've heard that before. And yeah, I believe that. But I'll always be divorced. I know he loves me, but I'll always be angry. I'll always be abused. The love of God needs to become the truest thing about us, where we're now saying, I know I've been divorced, but God loves me. This is the foundational truth that I'm building on, that I am loved. The gospel gets in and it roots that deep in us, and it never gets old. We never move on from this. Jesus is saying, this is it. You remain in my love. This is not milk. This is not elementary. So, I know, God loves me. But now let's get on with and being involved here. No. You will bear no fruit apart from remaining in his love. I want to receive communion this morning. Mike, would you come? Would the rest of the worship team come? Steve? Come on, Steve. Who here wants to join me this year in embracing the knife, praying for the joy, wanting the friendship, and wants to know the love of God? Anybody? All right. If you did that out of obligation, it'll only last 2 weeks. You've got to have joy. I want to come to the table. I want to remember Jesus, because he paid dearly so that we could experience these things this year. And I would like you to ask him, I want joy. I want pruning in my life. I know that it's needed. Every branch needs it. I want a friendship with you. I want to talk to you. I want to hear you say, come here, I'm sorry your kid almost drowned. And you want to know the love of God, so you're not left chasing after success, money, and status in order to fill what only the love of God can fill. Then I'd like you to come to the table and ask for it, because he paid dearly for it. You come to the table and you remember, he was cut off so that you could be cut in. He was separated so that you could come close. While we receive communion, I'd love to sing that Thank You, Father song. I've never sung it before, but is that what it's called? Sure. Most people on staff here just paid to agree with me. Sure, Trav. That's what it's called. Would you come forward? Would you remember the body of Jesus broken, the blood shed, so that you could have a vital connection with him? Would you ask him, embrace the knife, ask for the joy, his joy? I also don't have anyone to serve communion. All right, Mark, it's amazing. I just want to say, this is not a show. It's not a show, God. I want to know you. I want to abide, remain, stay connected to you. And so just embrace the knife in my life, that you would cut away the things that are crowding out your work and being with you. I want to ask for a deep joy that our witness in this community would not just be a bunch of involvement and activity, but our witness would be a deep joy. Why? Are they happy? I want to ask that we would know you as a friend, not as servants that are just doing the activities, but as friends, experiencing intimacy with you. And I also want to ask for a fresh revelation of your love, that you want us, that you like us, that the first thing out of your mouth would not be correction, that we'd be able to sense and experience your affection for us. In Jesus' name, amen. Come forward when you're ready. And when you're done, if you could make your way out and respect those who are still in line, that'd be great. I'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening. We want to be a resource for you as you walk with Jesus. So please connect with us at radiantvisalia.com. Until next time.
There is a heavenly city that I'm compelled to find. Though I love the flowers and trees and the smell of the grinding sea and all the beautiful things here in life. And I'm a pilgrim here on the side of the great divide.